Welcome to the Lone Machinist podcast, where we discuss tools, tips, and tales of the trade.
I'm John Dillahay with 2SM Performance.
I'm Jamie with JSpec Engineering and JSpec Tactical.
And together we're here to deep dive into manufacturing and entrepreneurship in a small shop.
So grab your safety glasses, fire up your machines, and let's make some noise.
Make some noise.
Oh, how's it, John? How are you doing this morning?
Well, this evening I'm doing quite great.
Yeah, good
pretty
point.
busy.
Yeah, sorry, forgot about the time
Morning
zones
for you?
again. Yeah, 6
I'll
a.m. for
pretend it's
me.
morning. Yeah,
Yeah, you're just getting started with your day now at 10 o'clock at night.
pretty much.
Ah, sweet. So today's episode, we are going to dive into our pasts in the industry and where we come from, the jobs we've had, and why we've decided to go out on our own in our small shops. So I don't know if you want to start us off there.
Yeah, well, my background in this industry, it goes back a long time. Um, Going out of high school, I wanted to be a welder originally, and I watched a lot of TV with American Chopper and Monster Garage on Discovery Channel, and I loved metal fabrication and motorcycles and stuff like that. And I remember the first time I ever saw a CNC machine, like a CNC mill. I believe American Chopper, they were having a custom billet wheel for like a Harley made inside of a big, like it was like a Haas BF4, and it was just so amazing to me. They took this big block of billet aluminum, they put it inside the machine, and you hear it make a bunch of noise, and I'm like, what is that shit spraying around in there, like milk or whatever? And a beautiful wheel came out, and I couldn't believe it. I was shocked, and that made me want to dive more into machining and learn what it was. Um, I got my first job while I was in high school at a shop called R&M Precision, and there I was just putting jigs on square tubing and drilling and milling slots and tapping holes on a Bridgeport. And oddly enough, that shop did a lot of contract work for Haas Automation because where I grew up in Ventura County was right up the hill from the Haas factory. Those tubes that I was machining at my first job ended up being like servo mounts and motor mounts for mills, oddly enough.
Okay. So back when there was still a
Yeah.
weldment.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
This would have been about 2004, 2005.
Ah, yes, when the ringing horses were being made.
Yeah. Well, those are actually, I hear from people that era of hosses are still the best quality,
Oh, okay. Because I
from
know
what
there
I've
was a
heard.
section where they really had a reputation of like the frame used to ring, like they weren't
Oh, is
super
that what
rigid.
you're talking about? Oh,
Yeah,
I've
the
never
frame
heard
actually.
that.
Yeah, they renowned, especially in South Africa, like they had got a really bad reputation for being a really resonant prone machine.
You know what? That is probably a lot of truth to that because
Yeah,
I was machining like mild steel square tubing with lots of holes and slots in them for the mounts, and I could see how that would resonate when
yeah.
under
It was
load.
back. It was before they were. I think initially they were castings, then they went to steel weldments, and then they went to castings again. And the steel
Okay.
weldments they were renowned for resonating. But yeah, interesting that that you were
Wow.
making pass parts.
That's my fault.
Yeah, we
I
can
did
blame you
that.
for it.
So yeah,
Nice.
I worked there for a long time. Then I decided that I wanted to go to college when I got out of high school. Um, so I actually went to an adult school, like a vocational school, my last year of high school actually, and they had I was just trying to get my GED and graduate high school early. And I remember I was walking down the halls with my mother, and then there was a machine shop there. I couldn't believe it. And they
Okay.
had, I believe, 6 or 7 Haas vertical mills. They had some lathes. They had Bridgeports. They had a whole machining curriculum, manual and CNC. And I was just so excited. I'm like, Mom, you got to sign me up for that. I want to do that. So I think it was like 300 or 400 bucks for a 6 month course or whatever, and I took the manual course first. It was every day after my classes, I would drive there and take the machining course. And I learned how to run a surface grinder, um, use the Bridgeport. I made some V blocks with the little clampy thing that goes on top.
Oh,
I
nice.
made a bunch of different projects. I made the hammer. Everyone makes the hammer.
Yeah.
Um, that was cool. And then I started doing the CNC class, and it was really no CAD or CAM or anything. It was just like manual programming, G code
Oh,
by
yeah.
hand with
All handwritten. Yep. Been there, done
graph
that.
paper, handwritten. Yeah, G02, G03. I made like a nameplate. I made my name on some acrylic, but that was about it.
Yeah.
Um, at the time, I was really into extreme sports, freestyle motocross, and skateboarding, and
Okay.
that's what I wanted to get into and do for a living. I was into filming and digital media a lot, which also coincides with my machining. But yeah, I went to college at Utah Valley University. I majored in digital media and small business management as my minor,
Okay.
and I just kind of I dropped out of college.
So,
I
in
was
theory, you
partying
know
too
what you're
much.
doing in
Yeah,
business.
it wasn't for me. It
Ah,
wasn't for
okay.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the college thing, it just wasn't for me. I was too into writing. I was too into doing my own thing as like an idiot. And you know what though, it just wasn't for me. And
Yeah.
things worked out the way they worked out. But eventually, I moved back to Texas with my father to help him with his business. He doesn't have a machining related business, but that's where I got my other machining jobs. I then started working at a small shop called Seabrook Machine, and that was just like a basic manual shop. It was owned by this like 85-year-old Hungarian guy and his wife. His name was Laszlo, and he was really cool. But sadly enough, as I was working there, he ended up dying, and I had to go find another job somewhere else because his wife sold the shop.
Yeah. That
Then
normally
I
happens.
went to yeah, my coworker that worked there. He told me about a previous shop that he had worked at in Deer Park called A&K Industrial Repair. And this
Okay.
place, oof, it was this is the first couple years I lived in Texas, and it was just like so redneck. Like I made the mistake that of telling one of the guys working there that I was from California, and that did not go over well. They did not like me. But I learned a lot there. I had a mentor there. He taught me a lot about running a lathe, and he taught me how to set up and run a BTL, which was really scary but really
Yeah.
cool.
Those things are terrifying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially indicating a part on one of those with all the clamps swinging around at your belly. It's
Yeah.
it's
No, that's
interesting fast.
yeah. No, that's yeah. That can get terrifying.
Yeah, that shop did a lot of industrial repair for like pump shafts in the chemical refineries and the
Okay.
power plants around Houston, Texas. So a lot of it was like pump shaft repair and like gearbox stuff, very industrial. I mean, yeah, industrial repair.
Yeah.
I learned quite a bit there. Making threads, cutting keyways, doing pump shafts, like basic manual stuff. And then I went and worked at a motorcycle shop after that for a while. I kind of got out of the trade. I kind of got burnt out on it.
Okay.
Years down the road, I moved to Austin, Texas with my girlfriend at the time. And I was still working in San Antonio cleaning pools for a pool cleaning company. And I was like, I remember the day when I was cleaning a pool and I was like, I'm going to start my own business. I want to get back into machining. and that was the day like I made the decision to order my Precision Matthews 728 VT mill, my bench mill,
Yeah.
and that kind of got me back down the rabbit hole into machining. And then after that, like I said, I moved to Austin, got a job at a place called, what was it? Oh, Cypress Industries. I worked at Cypress Industries, and this
Okay.
was a really interesting shop because it was a production shop, but it was all DMG Mori equipment. It was like six different DMG Mori NLX 3000
Nice.
700s.
Yeah, the
Yeah, they
biggest.
were really nice machines.
Yeah.
And then they had two DMG Mori mills, and they
Okay.
also had a couple, I think two Haas VF2s in the back and some Bridgeports. But what they did was they ran three shifts 24/7 around the clock.
Yeah.
And they were making fracking tubes for
Ah,
gas extraction.
yeah, for your mining industry or your gas
Yes,
industry.
absolutely. They're like these explosive tubes that explode, and they were just making them round the clock. And it was basically a male thread on one end and a female thread on the other, with a keyway and some scallops around the tube. And
Okay.
they had this program down.
Yeah, well, if you're
Like,
running that many, I would hope so.
yeah, yeah, it was very optimized, and I had never really been around that type of production machining before, but I took a lot from it and I learned a lot,
Yeah.
especially about, QC, metrology and inspection and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
remember that was the first shift they had got me on at that job was the third shift, which was like all night. It was like 11 at night to 6 in the morning or something like that.
Yeah. The graveyard shift.
And yeah, that was like the only way they were going to get me on, but the money was really good.
Yeah.
And I was wanting to get back into machining, and they were like willing to take me even though there was like a gap in my machining employment history.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh yeah, we'll get you making chips again." So that was a pretty cool experience. And then I I left there. They actually moved their operation to Mexico, and I ended up quitting. And then like a week after I quit, they shut down. So I just luck, pure luck. I missed out on getting laid off, so that was pretty cool. And I went to a shop in Austin, Texas called Command Manufacturing.
Okay.
And this is the shop that I probably learned the most at. It was a job shop that made a lot of parts for the semiconductor industries, aerospace, oil field, you name it. Um, they had like 20 machines there. They had about 10 lathes and 10 mills. It was like a very, I guess, like a 1990s style CNC machine shop.
Okay.
But they did have CAD CAM, but none of the machines had any probes. There was no live, not one lathe with live tooling in there.
Yep.
Um,
That's about
it was
right.
pretty interesting.
Yeah. One of the slightly older shops.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, they were kind of set in their ways. The owner was a cool guy, but he was kind of like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Just keep them running. Never change the coolant out.
Oh, jeez.
only only clean the shop when the VIPs and the customers are walking through. He
Fuck
was
that.
like, yeah, he was just like, keep the spindles turning, man. He was all business.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, but
yeah, I had a boss like that.
yeah, I think we all have, right? So
Yeah.
we ran a lot of Inconel 718 and even heat treated Inconel 718 there.
Okay.
And a lot of our jobs there required positional accuracy, true position, and maximum material condition,
Yeah.
which was cool. That meant that engineers there that provided our jobs knew what they were doing and gave us kind of like an allowance for tolerance with the maximum material condition.
Yeah.
Some places aren't like that. Some customers don't have good engineers. what we
No.
did there. We had a they had a Midatoyo CMM. That was the first shop I ever worked at with a CMM in a full QC department.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, yeah, and I learned a lot there, like about inspection, first article inspection, yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, all the
And
fun
I
stuff.
worked the important stuff. Yeah, right. Like I learned about like the quality manual, the spreadsheets for each print, like all of the important tolerances and features on the part and how they need to be signed off, and how these parts needed documentation. And I don't think they were an ISO shop, but it was very like ISO-esque kind of
Yeah,
operation.
that kind of stuff. It's worth having for when there's a problem. It's invaluable when there's an issue. It seems dumb until you need it. It's like, yeah, I now serialize one of my parts because of that. Just in case there's ever an issue, I can then say, okay, no, hang on, that part was made in this month of this year. Just that I've got a little bit of traceability, and also I can flag any issues I have on my side. Like that, the documentation
Absolutely.
goes a long way.
Yeah, yeah. You get to down to things like root cause
Yeah,
and stuff like that. If there's any errors in the parts, you can figure out what you did wrong and how you
exactly.
can correct it. And it's when the customer knows that you document stuff like that, it gives them more faith in what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's
So,
exactly it. We serializing one of our parts so that they also know that they're moving the old stock out first, because now the batches have serial numbers or batch numbers, and they can say, oh, these ones came in 3 months ago. Let's get them out before we get the new ones installed, because they had a
mhm.
few issues. But yeah, I went there. We delivered about 1,000 parts, and they had 2 or 3 parts that they didn't. Yeah, the failure mode, they failed. We had like 4 fail out of 1,000. Their previous failure rate within 3 months was like, I think it was 20 or 30% on the previous supplier. So I'm like,
Oh wow.
guys, let's just take a breath here. I'm not going to change what I'm doing. Your failure rate has gone from like 20% down to like 1 or 2%. Let's just take a deep breath and let it run for a bit longer. And now their failure rate is basically zero with the changes I made to their system.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, because, well, I mean, yeah, it's a crimped together tube going in a vibrating environment. It's not exactly ideal. But yeah, anyway, back to your backstory.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, command manufacturing. I didn't program there, but I learned like everything about setup. I ran a couple different machines. I was started out running a lathe in the lathe department. Um, I was trying to learn lathe setup, but I just wasn't really that good at it. And I could operate a lathe no problem. So the owner moved me into the milling department after like 3 months, and I just took off from there. I did great in the milling department. I enjoyed the mill much more. I don't know why lathes are kind of boring to me.
Lathes are an acquired taste.
Oh, yes, they are. Lathe guys. You guys are
Yeah.
special.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I got into the milling there, and yeah, definitely just learning how to machine accurately. I was learning how to, putting drills in ER16 holders, and like indicating the drill in the collet with like a mag base and an indicator on the table, and like
Yeah.
checking run out on your drills, and then like tapping the tool holder to adjust it, and all kinds of like very precise stuff that I hadn't learned before. Like I learned
Yes.
a lot at that shop.
It's the stuff you only learn when you're needing to hold those kinds of tolerances, and when
Absolutely.
yeah, and when you're taught that is the way you need to do it to be able to hit the tolerance that they're trying to hit.
Absolutely. Like, um, just I didn't know setup was so important. I thought it was just you put the tools in the machine, you clamp the part down and all that, but there is
Yeah,
such a wide
didn't you know
variety of jobs.
CNC, you just throw the block in, push the go button, and your finished part comes out.
Duh, of
Yeah,
course.
that's how it works.
Anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that job really woke me up to precision machining and then how there's a lot that goes into it. In the 2.5 years I worked there, I really learned a lot. I think the last 6 months I worked there, it was pretty much almost all repeat jobs, and I was getting bored because I was literally just, they would give us the traveler folder. You would look at the print. They had a data server rack where they could shoot the programs from the computer directly to the machine. You didn't have to use a thumb drive or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you would get your traveler, and then you would look at the program, and then you would know what tools what you get, and that each part had like a part number and a job number. I guess job would be like the batch number,
Yeah.
and you would go to like there was like a wall with lots of different tubs that pulled out with tooling. And this is one of the things I think about that shop that was like very inefficient looking back, because like every time you wanted to set up a new job and do a part, you had to load each tool into the tool holders and
Oh no.
build all the tool holders each time.
Yeah,
No
that's
probe. Yeah,
yeah, that's a bit tedious, especially if it's repeat jobs.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
really.
but there were so many different, they were repeat jobs, but some would come around only once a year. And there
Yeah,
was like a massive variety of part numbers. And a lot of the parts are really similar, but the hole sizes might be different, the engraving might be different. I
yeah.
think they were semiconductor parts, if I'm
Okay,
not mistaken. They're like these little round pucks that look like coins with a lot of little holes in them. But
okay.
yeah. So it was kind of boring because you would just set up your tool holders, build your tools, put them in the machine, load them, touch them off. You have to touch every tool off manually because there's no probe.
Yeah,
And then you would like put it in op stop and like 25% rapid on each tool the first time you go through the program, and then you just go from there. We would submit the first article before we ran any more parts. Joe, the guy on the CMM, would check the parts, and then once he gave us the go ahead, he would check the overall thickness and the position on all the holes and everything. And once that was good, then we could run. But I kind of, I got bored after that. I got bored doing that after a long time because,
yeah,
at home while I was working there, I was just, I think I was just really getting into my own thing where I was programming in Fusion a lot. I had already had my own home garage shop going. Uh, I would just work so much at nights and on weekends that it was like affecting my work there because I'd get like 4 hours of sleep working
yeah,
in my home shop and then go there the next day. And at home I'm programming and machining these crazy prototypes and motorcycle parts, having a blast. And then I would show up there and it's like the same thing every day, just setting up. And I
yeah.
just kind of got bored of it, and I got so confident with my programming. I decided I wanted to go to another shop as a programmer and try and learn something else.
Yeah. Try and grow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then what shop
You,
did
you
you end up at?
okay? Well, I won't name the shop
Okay,
because I'm not
that's fine.
very fond of them,
Ah.
but it was a pretty prominent shop in my area. They were mostly a sheet metal fabrication and welding shop originally, and the owner decided that he wanted to get into CNC machining. So he had bought like four brand new Haas mills, and he had them set up, and he had a guy that had been working there for like a year helping him get his CNC operation going. And he gave me a chance. He was cool. I told him I knew how to program. I was programming in Fusion at the time, uh, but they were going to use Mastercam. They were using Mastercam.
Okay.
And I remember I didn't really like that. There was kind of a learning curve there.
Yeah.
Um, I got really good with Mastercam working there. I think I got fairly good with Mastercam working there. There's things about Mastercam that I like. There's a lot of things about it I don't like. Same with Fusion. There's things I don't like and things that I
Yeah,
like.
everything has its pros and cons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
nothing is
working at
perfect.
this shop was like, um, it. There was no QC department. There was absolutely no QC. Trying to argue with the owner, saying, "Man, we need some kind of quality control." He's
Yeah,
like, "Man, it's up to you. If you can't QC your own parts, then what are we doing here?" And this guy does not know anything about machining,
yeah,
and it was just so frustrating working with somebody that is telling you what to do, but they don't have any machining experience or an engineer.
yeah. That's
And I think any machine shop that's owned or managed by people that are not machinists, I think it'll fail every time.
well, yeah. We
You
ran
know?
into similar things where at one of my main job before I went on my own. But yeah, we'll get into that in a little while
Yeah.
about the clown
Yeah.
show that was.
A clown show. Yeah, this was a serious clown show. It was like this guy was trying to run it as like a tech startup kind of thing,
Ah, okay.
like a bunch of bros,
Yeah,
and they he was trying to like really press us with 5S and stuff like that,
yeah,
and like he was trying to create this like intense work culture that just wasn't jiving with the employees. Bottom line is, if you're gonna press stuff on people, you got to make your people like you. He was not very good at making his people like him. He was kind of a dick. Sorry for my French.
that's probably not the
You
worst thing
want
that's going to be
people.
said on this podcast today.
It's okay. I think I already said the S word on accident.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, this guy, he who was demanding all this stuff. We were doing parts for Tesla. Where I was doing parts for Apex, a satellite company. I made like a satellite avionics panel, which is really cool. We were
That
doing
is pretty
parts for
sweet.
Caterpillar. Caterpillar, they
Yeah,
make bulldozers and industrial equipment. Yeah,
yeah, I
I
know
made a
them.
lot of prototypes. He wanted to run it strictly prototypes in onesie twosies,
Okay.
and the most he had on his machines was just probes. He had no system, no palletization. I've never been an expert at like running prototypes at a fat rapid prototyping,
Yeah,
but he was
that's
trying to do it, and we were getting parts out pretty damn quick, but I believe it was just such a high mix. He was taking on way too much. Me and the other guy that worked there, Gus, were trying to tell him like, man, you need uh, some jobs that are like recurring
yeah,
jobs that we can already have tool holders set up for, where you've ran them before. You need some bread and butter jobs, and he really thought he knew better. He didn't like that, you know,
yeah. He wanted. He
whatever.
wanted. Well, yeah, that was my whole thing when I started out. I wanted to do just prototype work, but turns out people don't want to pay for the setup time. So we
Exactly.
now, yeah, we now run production. Like the setup time you want me to make one of, it's going to take me a while to dial it in. So I'm going to end up making two or three of, and I'm not doing that for free. So yeah,
Hmm.
like on small stuff, it just wasn't worth it to do prototypey stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's extremely difficult to get a system down where you can rapid prototype stuff
Yeah,
fast and make a profit. This guy was living in a fantasy land, quoting jobs super low for prototype work,
yeah.
loading them on us, and he was wondering why we weren't making money, even though we
Well,
were working our asses off. You know?
yeah. Protolab do it, but they run standard material stock sizes. They've got like freaking 10 or 15 different sizes of material. And if your part fits in it, they use that block and they machine everything else
Yeah.
away with their standard set of tools. Like everything is pre-configured basically that they can program the part, push it to the machine, load that size block into it and just go. There's no faffing around with ordering material. They've got a bunch of blocks and those are the different sizes. It's a, yeah, very interesting workflow that they've got there.
Yeah, absolutely. And they probably have 0 point programming
Yeah,
where each machine
it's
has a
all
one work coordinate offset,
yeah,
and they have it modeled in their CAM system, and everything is based off that. So they never have to change their WCS. They
yeah.
never have
That's
to change
exactly
their
what
stock
they
size.
do.
It's just put it in and boom.
Yeah,
You know what I
I'd
mean?
rather take off a bunch of extra material than have to order a special size of material. Like it's a very
Yeah.
interesting model that they
Yeah,
run
very
there.
wasteful. I wonder
Well, not
how,
really. If you're making one of, by the time you get material there, you can have the part machined already.
yeah, you're right.
So
You're
it's
right.
yeah, it's an interesting. It's a different type of business.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the price of the material, but I mean, time is money, so you're
Yeah,
making a
time is
good point.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's always a trade off.
Yeah, so working at this shop, we're working our butts off. I think we're kicking ass, getting jobs out left and right. But this guy is just like underquoting everything so badly that we're losing our asses on these jobs. We don't have the machine set up for it, like you're saying. We don't have a system. You know, we're machining good parts. We're getting them out as fast as we can, but I think it was mainly a management issue with what he was quoting and what he was expecting.
Yeah,
Um, and I just didn't want to live under that kind of pressure and be treated like that as an employee.
yeah. No,
So
it's
eventually I left and went out on my own with my own business.
okay. And then
Yeah.
you've been you that was recently. That was earlier this year that you went full
Yes,
time.
yes. That was, I think my last day there was June 10th.
Okay, yeah. Because when we met
Yeah,
up at IMTS, you had just you were looking for another machine.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, sweet. All right, cool. So my let's dive into my history. I went
Jamie.
to I went to what's known affectionately as a Rome school, like an ice cream school for slow kids. Um, so come ninth grade, I was in academic school and I was not doing so well. Um, so from 10th grade, my dad was always like, no, you're going to go to a technical high school. He always knew that that was the plan. And from 10th grade, I went to George Campbell Technical High in Durban. And that, unfortunately, in 94, we got a new government here. And I was in the year that they changed the educational system. So through my entire school career, we were the guinea pigs, basically. And when I
Mm,
went to high school, we could choose. It used to be you could choose motor Mac, fitting and turning, um, what's a technical mechanical, which is all maths and bullshit, or you could choose electrical, electronics in the years before me. And then when I got there, you could choose mechanical, electrical, or bricklaying. So you could do civils. And I chose mechanical. So we did 4 terms through the year. We would do a term covering nuts and bolts and bullshit. We'd do one at Technica Mechanica, which was all the maths and shit involved with mechanical type stuff. Then we'd do a
mm-hmm,
term in fitting and turning and a term in Motomac. So Motomac, we had a full-on workshop, a bunch of car engines, a bunch of lawnmower engines, and we would go through and work on these and learn about engines. And then fitting and turning, we would do a project every year. So I did a G clamp one year. I can't remember what I did the other years, but I used to finish my project in about 2 weeks, and then I'll do private
mm-hmm,
jobs for my teacher. So I'd come into class, everyone would be working on their projects, and I'd go to my teacher and be like, cool, make these things for me and give me a drawing. And I'd go off into the lathe department or the mill department and go and make the stuff. But it was all, when I was there, it was all manual machines. I mean, we must have had
mm-hmm,
like 30 lathes, like a whole row of lathes. We had a couple surface grinders. They are responsible for my fear of surface grinders because I managed to jam a part in there and hop a belt off. It was quite impressive. And
Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
I've shot a part across the shop with the
Yeah,
surface
no,
grinder.
surface grinders
Ding.
can be nice and dangerous. And that's
Oh
actually where
yeah.
I learned what a shaper was because that's not something you see very much anymore. Is shapers. Chatting to my teacher, I'm like, why aren't we using this? What is it? And yeah, he explained it all to me. And then
Mm-hmm,
in 11th grade, we had work experience. So for the last, I think, 2 weeks of school, if your parents could organize somewhere for you to work, then you could take those 2 weeks of school and go do work experience. And at the time, I wanted to be a CNC programmer. And I went and basically did a 2 week apprenticeship that turned into a 6 week apprenticeship. And in that time, I discovered I don't want to be a CNC programmer because it's fucking boring. Um, the place that I was at, we were doing, they did work for Toyota, and they were making some O-ring mold, but the oak took like 4 days to machine four little cavities. It was ridiculous. Um, I ended up bending a whole lot of brackets on a fly press and going and installing like a plastic sheet in the Toyota factory above the assembly line so that dust wouldn't fall onto the parts in the assembly line. Your doggo is taking great offense there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did that. That was my 11th grade. I made some good money doing that, or at least at the time I thought it was good money. And then in 12th grade, in 11th grade, I dropped science because through the whole of 10th grade, I played on my phone in science. So I was failing it. I dropped it for computers in 11th grade, which meant I couldn't go and study any of the engineering fields. So I was like, oh, I'll just study drafting. It's easy. I was getting straight A's in TD, so on technical drawing. So one of my friends from school, and I went and studied at. It was a bit of a scammy spot. Basically, they claim that you're paying a shitload for tuition, and they subsidizing 2/3 of it. And then once you qualify, they find you a job and you pay them back for like 2 years or something. So they
Oh
basically
yeah,
take
yeah. They
most of
always
your
say
salary.
they're gonna get you a job. They all of them
So
say
they,
that.
so I dropped out of that in the second year because I realized they were just teaching me the same stuff again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and my friend was about to drop out, and they found him a job, so he ended up working for them for 2 years to pay them back. He's still a draftsman. I couldn't get a job as a draftsman, so I got a job as a salesman. And while I was there, so I'm trying to think the time. Oh no, sorry. While I was studying, I got a job at our local. It's like a Harbor Freight type store. I got a job as a technician repairing stuff that was broken. So I actually bring things that they've damaged, and I would go in on a Friday afternoon after college, and I would go and repair these things, and that got me enough pocket money that I could build a CNC machine. So I built my first CNC
Oh.
machine in end of 2009. It was following instructions off of Instructables. I had to take my mother's PC, boot it into DOS with a floppy disk, and then run Turbo CNC, I think it was. So I then run Turbo CNC, and then I could use my CNC machine. And
Oh
then
my
in
gosh.
2010, I had a job as a salesman, and I was for the same company. I was moonlighting doing drawings for them of cranes. So they needed, I was a lifting company. They needed drawings of cranes so they could sign off inspections. So I ended
Mm-hmm.
up coming up to Johannesburg to then drive 3 hours to site to go and make drawings for them. And while I was up here, I met up with one of my dad's friends who helped me make some step and direction drivers because at that time you could buy them, but you could buy gecko drives, and that was it. Like they were ridiculously expensive, and that's all you could buy. So we made over 2 weekends, we made up a set of step and direction drivers, and I moved over to Mach 3. And that machine I used like maybe 5 or 6 times in the year that I was still in Durban. And then I
Mm-hmm.
got a phone call one day. I was at work, got a phone call from a family friend. It's okay, you need to fly to Joburg this weekend. The guy will pay for your flights. You need to come up for a job interview. So I got on a plane, flew up to Joburg, and he had seen my CV and had seen I had built a CNC machine. So he was like, "No, cool. We're looking for a draftsman. He wants a 5 year commitment from me if he offers me the job because he had a few guys before that after like a year and a half, they would just up and leave and go start their own business or go work somewhere else. And he was feeling like the guys were just getting a bunch of knowledge and then leaving. So I was like, no, that's a sweet deal. It means I've got a pretty much guaranteed job for the next 5 years. So I started there as the draftsman. And then I noticed that there was a CNC machine on the floor that wasn't being used. So I asked about it and I started programming. It was an old Italian Sigma 3 axis mill. Learned to program on that. Just again, handwriting everything. Like I'd make a print and then would go and drill all the holes, and you'd type in each hole, each hole's coordinates, and the machine would go and drill it. And a bit
Was
like
it like
basic.
a
It
Was
was
it
a
like a
Fanuc.
conversational system,
No,
or was it like just MDI? You hand type everything
yeah,
in MDI
we
kind
would
of thing.
write a program. Yeah, would basically write a program on a Fanuc OM. So you would type in
Oh
each
wow.
coordinate, then you'd do your tool change, and you would type in your coordinates for your perimeters. It was really, really daft. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So I ran that for a while. Then they sold or they scrapped that machine, I think, and replaced it with a Kitamura. We had two Kitamura Mars Center X3s that were from the early 90s. They were actually bought by the company my boss at the time worked at before he started his own business at Smith's Wheels. They bought these two machines, and then we ended up with both of them at where I was working. And then I set my one up with, so there was another guy who used to program by hand. We left him on his machine. And then I set my one up with a tool library in Fusion, dedicated tools in the
Mm-hmm.
machine, like all the standard drills for drilling and tapping, all stuck a standard set of end mills. And then that machine was mine. I used to run production on it, like because we used to manufacture wheel measuring machines. So we used to measure
Mm-hmm.
alloy rims in production.
Okay.
So we would basically the alloy rims would be machined, powder coated, and then they'd come down the line. We would load them onto a spindle, measure their run out, and then kick them out the other end. And yeah, by the time
What wheels would the what application were the wheels for?
for all your general automotive. So, well, I say
Oh,
general,
cool.
yeah, general automotive. And then we also did a couple specialty machines for PBS Motorsports, where they were doing the Veyron and the R8 wheels. That was a really impressive factory to go into. Not very big, but hella production. Like they had a bunch of MAM 72s and they were making these wheels out of forgings.
Matsura?
Yeah, Matsuras. It was really,
Ooh.
really impressive. Yeah. No, like really
Wow.
impressive to see how they were doing this. But yeah, we built a measuring machine for them. We built wheel balancers. By the time, yeah, so then in 20, I want to say 2015, we had some chucks manufactured, high accuracy for grabbing the bores of the wheels. And the guys who
Mm-hmm.
made them, they had nice DMG machines. We called out really tight tolerances, and he's like, no, no, we can hit it easily, milling these features. And my boss and I are like, this doesn't seem like they're going to be able to mill this, but they've got CMMs, they've got everything. We'll trust that they can do the job. We ended up throwing
Mm-hmm.
away a few of those chucks. They didn't repeat. They weren't made to a tight enough tolerance. So then my
Yeah.
boss bought a wire cutter, and I designed a chuck to be manufactured on the wire cutter. And that wire cutter arrived, and I ran it for 3.5 years before I eventually got the Murren and left. So
EDM.
yeah, EDM wire
Yeah.
cutter. So we designed a
Mm-hmm.
chuck to be manufactured on that, and then I used to manufacture those chucks. I used to sleep at work on the for the one chuck because it was about a what is a 28 hour job to run them. But if you let the coolant, so it was in a temperature controlled room, but if you let
Mm-hmm.
the water drain and the whole thing come to temperature, because the water was like 1 or 2 degrees below the room ambient. So if you ran one of the cuts, went home, came back in the morning, repositioned, the whole job had shifted by about a thou. So what we had to do is I would run it. It would be about 5 hours to rough out, take the slugs out, and then another 2 hours to finish. Then I would pull this part of it must have weighed like 30 or 40 kilograms. So like 60 to 80 pounds. Pull it off,
Mm-hmm.
rotate it, put it back on the fixture with dowel pins, tighten it, reprobe, run. And I'd sleep at work to be able to do that all four cuts in a row. Otherwise, it would shift and then the thing would bind up in assembly.
Yeah,
But yeah, by the
EDMs are
time,
not known to be the fastest machines, right?
no, they are not. Fast is not the word I'd use to describe them.
Yeah.
And then by the time I left there, I started as a draftsman. I was running the EDM. I was running the milling department. I was running. I was the main designer, and then I had two draftsmen. So I'd design the thing and then just pass it off to them, as well
Mm-hmm.
as traveling around the world to go and commission and repair these machines. So like I'd get to work on a Monday morning, and my boss would be like, "You're going to Germany tonight. One of the machines broke." And I'd hop on a plane and fly to Germany. Or I would be, you're going to Poland. Oh, for how long? No, till the work's done. I ended up in Poland for 5 weeks in one go. It was, yeah, it was a bit annoying. And yeah, in 2018 in January, I spoke to them. I'm like, listen, I'm engaged. I'm getting married. I want to have kids and whatnot. I need to start phasing out of this random travel bullshit. And then in August, my boss was like, oh, I need you to go to Brazil. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Go to Brazil next week. And then he could see I wasn't happy. And he calls me in one day. He's like, if you're unhappy, you can always resign and move on. Following day, here's my resignation letter. I'm done with Yokes. Gave them 2 months' notice and then went on my own. But through the whole of 2018, in the beginning of the year, when I realized that these oaks aren't actually listening, I went to my boss. I'm like, listen,
Mhm.
I want to build a CNC machine like a bit bigger because I built a CNC machine a few years before. I'm like, I want to build something a bit more stout so that I can mess around on the weekend and stuff around at home, like in my garage kind of story. And I built the Sister Slowio in 2018. And it was almost finished when I eventually resigned. But I was actually planning on resigning the following month. My wife was being recontracted at work, so she would be able to actually pay our bills. And I was like, I'm done with these people and this travel. I want to go out on my own. So I had planned to go out on my own already. And then,
Mhm.
left there in November, 1st of November, I was on my own and finished up the Slowio and started JSpec Engineering and doing it
Nice.
full time. For the first year and a half, I got to just stuff around effectively, see what I
Mhm.
enjoyed doing. Like, as long as the business didn't cost my wife money, she was happy. Like, that was the only real criteria, is that it didn't cost her any money. She was paying all our bills, and then COVID happened, and she got retrenched. And I went from it being kind of like a lifestyle hobby thing to being profitable in the span of 2 months. And since then, we've been running. Like, we launched a product in the span of 2 months, and then from there we've increased our product line. That was our plus two shoes for the Glock 43, because there were no Glock 43 accessories available in South Africa. So we saw a gap
Mhm.
in the markets, made those. Then we made a Glock 19 base, a CZP07 base. Now we do an AR-15 plus 5 mag base. So we've
Mhm.
expanded that range. That's not really our bread and butter anymore, but it got us through the beginning. And then we started doing production stuff. And we've been doing production stuff ever since.
Very cool.
So we grew from a milling machine and a router to we've now got two CNC lathes, two CNC mills, fiber laser, CO2 laser, and a shitty little manual lathe that I use for cutting bolts. Like, but that has also taken us 6 years to grow to that.
Yeah.
No, it was 5 years that I ran the Slowio as my main milling machine. It was this. It was basically this time last year that I decided I needed another mill. I had another mill on my
Mhm.
floor. I bought a Bridgeport style CNC machine that the controller had died, and I was going
Oh
to
my
retrofit.
gosh, I remember that thing.
Yeah, the Connie. That thing sat on my floor for a year. I never finished it because I
You
didn't
did
really
so much.
need
I
it.
think you worked on it more than you ran it.
Well, I never ran it. I literally it sat for a year. I did because it was also I was trying to do the retrofit cash. So I would buy parts when I
Yeah.
had spare money, and
Mhm.
I then sold it to one of my customers at the beginning of November last year. Well, in 2023, they needed a mill for a job that they were doing. I'm like, hey, I got a mill for you. Give me 2 weeks and it'll be sorted out. Pay the deposit. So they paid a deposit. I ordered all the things I needed, finished retrofitting it, and delivered it to them on the 13th of December. And then I woke up on the 1st of January and I'm like, I need another spindle. And that's where the rabbit hole to get the LK started. So the LK started off as, ooh, I'm going to buy a Samurai Machine Tools. It's a machine made in the UK, small. Basically, the sister Slowio just made a little bit better, without an enclosure, without a controller. I was going to have to do all of that. It was going to run me about $10,000. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I can probably get the bank to give me money for that because I definitely need more capacity. Then I
You're
thought about it.
basically getting like a Tormach style machine,
Yeah, a
right?
little bit better. It's
Yeah.
running linear guides,
Yeah.
and it's a bit of a better
Okay.
machine. Yeah, but like a
Mhm.
440, but on steroids.
A
Uh,
440. That's what I was thinking in my head when I
yeah.
said that. Yeah.
So the Sister Slowio is designed to be better than a 440 in every way, as in 10
Mhm.
millimeters more travel in every axis, and like just like petty little things that are better. Just because I was designing the machine, so I wanted it to be a little bit better. So it started off
Uh-huh.
with that. Then I realized, okay, no, that's going to always be a hobby machine. It's never going to
Yeah.
be a industrial machine. So then I looked around,
Yeah.
and there was a place about 30-minute drive from me. They had a Leadwell robo drill style machine. So like a robo drill
Mm-hmm.
copy made by Leadwell from, I think, 2005. I went down, I had a look at the machine, bit more expensive. It was about $20,000. Um, I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. Send me a quote so that I can get financing approved, please. Went down the next day, so we switched the machine on. I checked it, everything seemed okay. Forgot to check how much memory it had. So I went down the following morning, checked how much memory. I'm like, bit on the small side, gonna have to run one of those NC boxes, but I can drip feed this
Mm-hmm.
machine. I can make it work.
That's what I use. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, cool, please send me the quote. That afternoon, I get a phone call. I'm like, oh, you finally giving me a quote? The guy's like, yeah, no, someone put a deposit on the machine. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, seriously, guys, how is this a thing? Like, no one was looking at the machine, and now someone snapped it out from under me. So I phoned my one of my high school friends who works down in Cape Town at WD Hearn, and I'm like, hey, bro, the Machine Tool Africa's coming up. What are you guys bringing in for the show? Do you have anything on the floor? Like, what options do I have? So he's like, no, there's a TC710 on the floor. I'm like, oh, interesting. I've looked at that machine in the past when I visited him, and it's a really nice machine. I'm like, what's the story with this machine? So he's like, no, give me a second. He goes to his boss. No, it's a 2019, and they bought it back from a guy who had gotten cancer. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'll see you on. This was on like a Thursday. I'm like, I'll see you on Tuesday. Pick me up at the airport. I'm flying down to look at the machine. So I
Mm-hmm.
spoke to my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law said to me, if I don't come right with the bank, then I must come speak to him about funding the machine. Went to the bank. I'm like, listen, here's the price of the machine. They're like, no, your turnover is not high enough to finance this. So I'm like, okay, cool. I will phone my brother-in-law. So I phoned my brother-in-law. He's like, yeah, no, that's fine. We can make it work. So I flew down to Cape Town, had a look at the machine, tested it, put a clock on it, checked everything was okay. Go sit with I think he's the owner of WD Hearn. He's one of the old toppy there, Raymond. And he's like, yeah, no, Laka, you bought Bertha from us, because I'd bought Bertha like 2 years prior to that from them. He's like, no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, obviously, I want to get VAT registered so that I can claim the VAT back on this purchase, because it's about $5,000 that I could claim back from the government.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, okay, cool, no worries. We need the space, so we put in the machine, put down a $5,000 deposit, and the machine will be on your floor next week. Once your VAT registration comes through, you can pay the balance. I had the machine on my
Mm-hmm.
floor a week later and was making money on it. And then once my registration was complete with the VAT, I then paid the balance of the machine. And yeah, I had been running it for a month at the time. So yeah, they helped me out a hell of a lot there. But that also just goes to show you, like, industry relationships go a hell of a long way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, they
Yeah.
knew I wasn't
So
going to
you
run
know.
away with the machine. I can't fucking move the thing. But yeah, then to get that
Yeah.
into the garage was a whole endeavor. Like taking my garage
Oh
doors
yeah.
off, putting the sliding doors up. That all happened in one day. So I planned everything, had the sliding garage doors fabricated, had the beam delivered, and then had builders pitch up in the morning, knock the doors out, we jacked the roof up, knocked the brickwork out, put an I-beam in place, and put the doors on all in one day,
I
because you can't
remember
leave
the
your garage
stories.
open, like the shit's gonna get stolen.
Yeah, yeah, especially where you live, right?
Yeah,
That's a no no.
it's not too bad in our specific area, but yeah, you don't want to give Oaks
Yeah.
opportunity. No, don't.
No, no, yeah. When you're gonna do something like that, you want to get all the work done in one day, so you
Yeah,
can
so you
have
can
your
lock it
new
up.
machine in your garage and safely locked up.
Yeah,
You know.
I mean, I look at the amount of money that's spent on tooling in the garage, and it's like, ish, it's yeah, it's scary. But yeah, our
Yeah.
area we in is not too bad, and we've got quite high security here, so it should be fine.
What was the clearance interference for the top of your mill and your garage door
So,
originally? Like how many
te-
inches short was,
technically
or
speaking, technically speaking,
millimeters,
it
whatever?
would have fitted.
Yeah.
It would have fitted. But the problem is when you put a forklift under it, it then gets taller. So that's why I lifted the doors, that it wouldn't be an issue. Also, width-wise, it would have been an issue to go through the garage door.
That's why you went with the slider design, right? So
That's
you
so
could
the
get that
sliders.
width, and you took that
Yeah,
brick column out of the middle. Yeah,
yeah. Took the brick column out, and I can stack all my doors to the one side and get about a 4 meter opening.
that is really cool.
Yeah. So like I've got plans afoot to build a new workshop in my front yard. and that is going to
Hmm.
be set up as a sports car garage. So we'll build it. My brother-in-law's got a couple mates with sports cars. We'll get them to pull them in, take some pictures, and then put the workshop in there. That way, if we ever want to sell the property, it's you've got a sports car garage on the property. Like it's a
Wink,
selling
wink.
feature. It's not
Yeah,
just a workshop.
it adds
It's a
value to
feature.
like a normal
Yeah,
person with money, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Because the
that's a good
area we're in
idea.
is quite a nice area. My mother-in-law bought
Yeah.
the house 40 years ago when there were only three houses in the area. So
Hmm.
it's a nice area. It's actually a really upmarket area that we're in. And then I just run machine shop out of the garage. It's great.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, you
try
have a
not to miss.
killer setup.
Yeah, no, the setup I've got here is pretty sweet.
Hmm.
But yeah, your setup seems to be getting tighter there. It's like you're taking notes from me on how to put as
Yeah,
many machines as possible in the garage.
absolutely. I'm trying to squeeze them in here, man. I'm up to 3 mills now, and I
Nice.
gotta tell you, I love it. It's stressful, but I love it.
No, 100%. I put it this way to someone a while ago. Like working for yourself is there's pros and cons to everything, and right now the pros outweigh the cons significantly.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like
There. Yeah. Sorry.
no. I used to go fishing on a Thursday at 3 o'clock every Thursday because you know what? I work late. I work into the evening every night. My customers can wait till Friday to talk to me. I'm going fishing. Like, sorry, I'm taking these 2 hours to go fishing in the afternoon. I'm knocking off early and going fishing. Like that. Yeah, one of the perks of working for yourself is you've got flexible hours.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't like being told what to do, and I don't like pressure from like a boss type individual over my neck all the time, putting pressure on
Yeah,
me. The only person I want pressure from is my customers, because I am all about customer service, and all
exactly.
that matters to me is making the customer happy. And I'm okay
No,
with
exactly.
that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, and also like yeah, the expectations then are reasonable. Like my wife used to work for a place that was really easygoing. Like she used to work in the center of Joburg, so she used to go to work at 6 in the morning and then leave at 3. And
Hmm. Oof.
if she didn't have a lot of stuff that had to be done at the office, she could work remotely. Then she changed jobs, and then no, you have to be here at 7:30 in the morning, and you have to leave at 4. And it's like that is peak traffic. Why can't I start an hour earlier and leave an hour earlier? And yeah, the guy was like, no, these are the hours. Like that's one thing that used to really
Inflexibility.
frustrate me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that used to frustrate me where I used to work was we had to be there at 7:30, we had to be ready to work at 7:30. That's fine. Then we would have a bell that would go off at about 20 past 4 for the guys to go and change and whatnot. And then at half past 4 you could leave. I'm like, guys, I'm not going and changing. Why must I stand here for 10 minutes? I'm not working. Me leaving at 25 past meant that I got home like 10 minutes sooner than if I left at half past because there was less traffic. But no,
Yeah, that's
used to
a
get in.
serious thing too. 10
Yeah,
minutes makes a
I
big difference with traffic.
it makes a huge difference with traffic. And
Yeah,
yeah, that used to
massive.
frustrate me. And then they'd be like, oh no, you arrived late to work for a week. I'm like, yes. And I worked through tea and lunch for that entire week as well. Like I never used to stop working. If I was busy working, I would eat my lunch at my desk because I'm in the zone and I'm working. And that was most days that I would just work through my lunch and my tea. But then, yeah, no, but you left 5 minutes early. I'm like, guys, I gave you extra 40 minutes today. What are you on about?
Oh wow,
No,
seriously? Usually when you're
yeah.
working through lunch, they notice that and they don't care if
No,
you
my
leave
office was
early.
No, my office was far from theirs at that point. So when we got the wire cutter, I used to be upstairs in an office next door to my boss with a window between us, which was nice. And then I moved down to the wire cutter because it was a needy little machine, and I had to be there the whole time.
You
So
had to
then we
sleep
built
next to
off,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Then we built the drafting office down there. So then they didn't really know what was going on. Like they didn't know they would come down there like twice a day or 3 times a day. They would sit upstairs in their nice offices, and I would be stuck in my air-conned office with a wire cutter. So yeah, that was one thing that annoyed me a bit was the disconnect from what was actually going on and what they perceived to be going on. Like my boss's son was poised to take over, and he had no clue. He was an accountant that was then basically running the business, and yeah, that's not the way to do it. Also, like my boss there was renowned for over promising and under delivering,
Oh yeah.
or outright
Yeah, mine
or
too.
outright lying to customers. Like that was one of the things
Hmm.
that really got to me. I'd be standing next to him and he'd be telling the customer fucking straight up lie, and I've got to stand there straight faced and be like, yes, that's the truth. So I used to go down to Port Elizabeth every 6 months or so to go and service two of the balancing machines we had built, because my
Hmm.
boss was an idiot and sold them two of them. You never sell two measuring machines, because if you've got two, they have to read the same. If you've got one,
There's a
you'll see
variation
wrong.
there.
Yeah, you've got to tie
Absolutely.
that variation up. It was horrible. But I used to go
Absolutely.
down every
Yeah.
six
That's
months.
impossible. Yeah.
Oh no, I could do it. I figured out how to get it to do what I want. But I used to go down every
Yeah.
6 months, strip the chuck off the machine, clean it in paraffin, wipe out all the grease, reassemble, recommission. So I'd go down, decommission one machine, recommission it, then decommission the second machine so they could still run production. So they were doing
Hmm.
400 wheels an hour, and each machine could do 300. So for every hour we were down, they were backlogging 100 wheels. They were having to put them on pallets and then try and find time to run them. So I would go down, they would be down for about 3 or 4 days between the machines, get everything tied together, calibrated, and then sign off. And I left, and my one colleague took over, and he was also very capable. He left a year after I left the company, and then my
Hmm.
boss went down to do this. And I get a phone call from the guys, because I had a good working relationship with all the guys down there. Get a phone call, hi there,
Hmm.
we just want a second opinion here. They're saying they can't calibrate it because the spindle is poked. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Here's an invoice, pay the invoice, I'll come down, because I'm not flying down there on my own dime. Like, you guys pay the invoice, I'll come and give you a second opinion. So the next day, they're like, no, we're going to send the spindle up for rebuild. If we don't come right, we'll phone you. I'm like, cool, I'll chat to you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks' time, I get a phone call. Yeah, no, your my old boss, he's just left site. The machine's not running. He's been here for a week and he can't get it right. He's now just left site and we are standing. We need assistance, please. So I sent them
Oh
the
my
invoice. They paid the
gosh.
invoice. I flew down. This machine had been down for like 6 weeks at this point. So for every hour of production, they were stacking 100 wheels. They had
100 wheels.
pallets
Yeah.
and pallets of wheels stacked that they couldn't check. So I got down there. I think that they phoned me on like a Friday afternoon. I'm like, cool, I'll see you on Monday. I'm not flying down for the weekend. Flew down on the Monday morning. I was on site for 2 hours. They were up and running production again. My boss just
So
didn't know how to calibrate the machine.
your boss
Couldn't
couldn't fix the
calibrate.
problem. He abandoned it and you fixed it in 1 hour.
Yeah, pretty much. Then I ended up in a meeting with the is it the managing director of Borbit South Africa, and the
Hmm.
guy's like, so yeah, we had Reg here. He said we asked him, is Jamie available to assist? And Reg turned around and said, no, Jamie doesn't know what he's doing on these machines. So I look at them and I'm like, let me tell you something about Reg. Do you know how you know he's lying? And they all look at me seriously. And I'm like, his mouth's moving. Fucking done. Don't throw me under the bus when you can't do the thing yourself. So then they ended up getting rid. I think they had 4 machines at one point. All those machines got scrapped over a span of like a year and a half and replaced with machines with people who could actually give them service. Because that's the thing
Yeah.
my previous boss didn't realize. Making a sale is easy. It's the after sales that is not. Like I was the mechanical technician and we had a software guy.
Yeah.
But the software guy was doing the software for new machines and maintaining old machines.
Yeah.
So
You
we
were a
would
maintenance tech. Yeah.
so we would get a call. Oh, you need to go to Poland. Okay, cool. Off to Poland. We're there for 2 weeks fixing a machine because we were like, yeah, they were renowned for sending stuff that was half finished. Don't worry, Jamie will fix it on site when he installs it, kind of story. Um, and then we would end up there, and a customer in Czech Republic would phone and say, hey, our machine's down. When can we have a technician? No, as soon as they're done in Poland. 2 weeks later, we're still not on site to repair the Czech guys' machines. And then a German machine would go down. No, as soon as they're done in Czech Republic. The Renault group were like, cool, when you show us you can actually service your machines, we want to order another 4, but we're not going to do that until you can prove you can actually service your machines, because they didn't want to spend money
Oh.
on having
Yeah.
staff ready to go if there was a problem. Like in my mind,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've got 20 machines around the world. You best have a couple technicians on payroll at all times, that when something breaks, you could be there within a day or two anywhere
They're
in the
putting it
world.
all on you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
like,
unfair.
and yeah, that it was really, yeah, I learned a lot from them on what not to do.
Hmm.
Like I try not to do CNC retrofits, because it means that if something breaks, I've got to drop what I'm doing and go and fix it, which is less than ideal.
Absolutely.
Like I still
Yeah, and
do, I
that's
still
why a
do,
lot of people. Sorry, you still do what?
I still do CNC technician work. Like I replace linear guide. There's a company, Hoatlander. They do wooden chairs. I did a retrofit for them on a lathe. I repair their routers. I get phoned before the agent gets phoned now to repair their routers because I'm there faster than the agents. But like I do CNC technician work because it's basically free money. But it also comes with the issue that their shit breaks and now you must drop what you're doing to go and repair their machine.
Well, doesn't that take time away from your production and your operation?
It does, but fortunately, I can just work late. So, like
Yeah.
the rates are actually going up now in January for call outs. That if you want to call me out, you're going to be paying for two of my machines to be running because most days two spindles are running. So
Yeah.
you best be paying more than those two spindles if you want my attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
your
we're going to
time
put
is
up our
valuable.
yeah our technicianing service rate is going to go up now, and that includes
Yeah.
driving to site. Everything's just getting more expensive because it needs to be worth my while to
Travel.
stop what I'm doing. Yeah. Although
Yeah,
most of the time,
absolutely.
like
Yeah.
I can leave machines running and just have my wife load bar and whatnot in the lathes. But sometimes that's not the case.
Yeah. Well, I think
Yeah,
that's a big reason why people love buying Haas machines here in America is because the
service.
support is just unmatched.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like
It doesn't.
if you look at Haas machines in South Africa, that's not the case. By the time it lands
Oh,
here,
really?
it's actually overpriced. By the time you ship it to South Africa,
Hmm.
you can get
Wow.
a better machine from the likes of Kitamura or Mazak or one of those for the same price as a Haas because of the shipping.
Oh yeah, Kinemura X3 is a much better machine. I mean,
Yes.
leagues better than a Haas.
No, my one. So
Yeah.
the guy from W Durham that I went to high school with, he's their metrology specialist now, and he ended up in the UK at Renishaw, and they had a Haas. It was one of their smaller machines. I think it was a super mini mill, and he ball barred the
Hmm.
thing, and he reckons it was hilarious how bad the ball bar on that was. All it's
Just
ever done is cut
way off.
plastic. Yeah, all it's ever done is cut plastic. He reckons the ball bar
Yeah.
wasn't even within a thou.
Wow.
Like he won't touch a horse. He won't let me touch a horse. I'm like, they can't be
Yeah.
that bad. Like, I mean, I saw VF2 for the first time ever at Machine Tool Africa in May, and
Hmm.
it's hilariously small. Like, if I look at the casting, the spacing on the ways, all that kind of stuff, like
Everything's
kinematic,
undersized. Yeah.
kin, kin, uh, kinematically, I feel like my LK, my drill tap sensor, is a more rigid machine.
Really?
Like if I just look at how the kinematic layout is, I feel like my LK is a more uh, stout machine than the VF2 is. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And you
it's
have
interesting.
that
Like
fast, rapid, and tool change. It's a much more
yeah,
productive mill than a
well,
VF2 would ever
that,
be.
yeah, I went round IMTS and I was just looking at how all the machines were built. That's what I was doing. Like I should be asking questions. I've got my head in the back of the panel, having a look how it's been wired, how it's been assembled, what the castings look
Hmm.
like. It was quite eye opening to see the difference in all the different manufacturers and how they build their machines.
Yeah, they have different philosophies on how they do things and
Yeah,
put things together, and it's very interesting to see that.
yeah, it's interesting to see that. Like we're planning to come to IMTS in 2026.
Hmm.
Like my wife and I are going there. Basically, I'm going to the US on holiday, and IMTS just happens to be then. Like I'm going to spend five
How
days there.
convenient.
Yeah, how convenient. So I assume you walked around. Yeah, we walked around the fabrication section of IMTS together. Um,
Yeah.
that hall is the size that Machine Tool Africa was. Machine Tool Africa is the biggest machine tool show in Africa, and it was the size of the fabrication hall. It was a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
That's the whole and of that, I'd say about a sixth of the whole show was just WD Hearn. They had a really good year, so they were just swinging their dick around,
Is it a
showing
South
off.
African company?
Yeah, it's based in Cape Town. They had a really
Yeah.
good year. They the agents for Leadwell, Kitamura, um, Tornos, Flow Water Jets. They're one of the big agencies here.
Okay, so they're like Ellison Technologies. They're like a
Yeah,
distributor.
The distributor,
Okay.
the agents for
Yep.
LK, they don't actually bring the LKs in anymore. The LKs, they kind of price themselves out of the market. They're a
Yeah,
bit
those are very
expensive.
high sought after machines. It's kind of like the robo drill design. I think there's
Yes,
another one called a Nomura. Is it the
yeah.
Nomura?
I know the one you're talking about. I
Yeah.
can't remember what it's
Yeah,
called.
it's the
It's
blue and
also,
white and yellow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really rigid robo drill. Basically, it looks very
Yeah.
very similar to the LK. But yeah, they
Yeah, the
they they
Nomura.
reckon,
Yeah.
yeah, the LKs, they now about $50,000 by the time they land them here, which is
That
apparently
is
a little
not
bit too
bad at
expensive.
all. That is great.
The thing is, you
That's
can
really
get
good.
there's a Sino machine that you can get for about $35,000 new. So they've priced themselves out in our market, like South Africa's market. We vote with our wallets. Doesn't matter if
Hmm.
it is half the product. If it's 10 cents cheaper, we buy it. Like the South African market it's a very interesting market to try and compete in. My friend used to
Race to
make
the bottom.
drones. Yeah, he used to make
Hmm.
drones. His main market was the US market because locally I can buy something from China for $49. His was $52. I'm buying the one from China, even though it's not as good. The South Africans tend to pay vote with their wallet really badly.
Cheap
Like,
asses.
yeah, no, it's really really bad here with that. You get the oaks who'll spend
Yeah.
the really good like buy high quality stuff, but the majority of
Hmm.
people, if I can get it for a few bucks cheaper, I'm getting it for a few bucks cheaper. Doesn't matter if it's only half the quality.
Man, that sucks. I think a lot of
Yeah,
people are like that too here in America, unfortunately.
yeah, you guys tend to spend a lot more money on stuff than we do. I think there's a bit more disposable income there than there is here. Like my
Yeah.
brother, my brother works in the fishing industry, selling high-end fishing equipment, and he reckons
Hmm.
the South Africans' disposable income is always under threat. Like, oh, cool, I got a couple extra bucks to buy something, and then the government will add some new tax or some random thing will happen. So, like, it's not like the US. I think there's a lot more disposable income available.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, because that's like the whole ethos of my business and my product line is like an emphasis on quality
Yes,
and choosing something quality made in America,
no, 100%.
instead of some Chinese eBay piece.
Well,
That's like
that's it.
when
Like,
you want to buy my brand, that's like the statement. It's like this is the best.
yes. No, that's it. Like, all my stuff has got, well, all my stuff that potentially gets exported has got made in RSA because I'm proud that it's made in South Africa. Like, there's no reason to hide that it's made in South Africa. It's not made in China. That's the big thing. It's made somewhere by a dude in a garage, not a factory shitting them out at minimum wage.
A guy that cares. It's like a
Yeah,
craftsman that
that's
loves what
it.
he's doing and puts his heart into what he's making. You
That's
know.
it. Like even the pallet system, it'll have made in RSA on it because I'm proud that it's developed and made in South Africa.
Yeah, the first time I ever saw that was that fluff knife you gave me. I thought
Yes.
it said USA for a second, and then I'm like, whoa, that's an R.
Yeah. No, Republic of South
Ah,
Africa.
Republic of South Africa. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the first time I
So
saw
no,
that.
yeah, I'm proud to put made in RSA on stuff. We actually
Yeah, that's cool.
we're doing a product line for one of my customers who does the gun stuff. He wants to export to the US. So the branding is going to be on those instead of bullets and brass, it's going to be MIA, made in Africa. But when it's in the US, it'll be made in America. We're not going to
That's
categorically
so
say it's
funny.
made in America, but
It
it's
just
going to be
fits. It fits
assumed.
both countries.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's going to be
yeah.
assumed it's made in America when it's actually made in South Africa.
That's so funny.
Yeah, because we've got
Yeah,
the
you can
making on
get
those
away with that.
magnets. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not categorically stating it, but if you perceive it to mean that, good for you.
that's too
Like
funny. That's
we,
great
yeah,
marketing.
no, that's it. We're doing the case gauges, and those things we're going to export because we're undercutting the market something silly here, and we can probably not necessarily undercut, but we definitely cheaper than having it made in Australia or made in the US because as we were
Hmm.
discussing the other day, shop rates. Our shop rate here on those specific things we're doing. I think we're doing about $40 or $50 an hour to manufacture those, so we're making good money
Okay.
on those. But our average shop rate is like $25 an hour. If you try to charge more than
Hmm.
that for lathe work, the guys are like, no, it's fine, we'll get it done somewhere else.
Yeah,
Whereas you guys are like $100, $150 an hour. Um, but our cost of living here and everything else is also
exactly.
like
There's
an
this.
order of
It
magnitude.
scales.
Yeah, it's an order of
Yeah,
magnitude difference. That was something that shocked us when we went to IMTS, is the cost of food in the US was something silly. Like
Right.
what what we paid for, we went to Five Guys. My wife and I each got a burger, we shared a fries and we shared a drink. And we could have gone and got each of us a burger, fries, and drinks 3 times, 3 or 4 times for the price we paid for that one meal.
That's wild.
No, we could have gone for like a really fancy dinner, had like steak and nice stuff for the price we paid for a burger and fries.
So you're saying the actual value per dollar is less in America for the goods than
Well,
back
you guys,
there? Well,
yeah,
the
you guys,
currency converts, right?
yeah, currency
Or no?
converts. So on like on day to day things like bread and milk and stuff like that, it's pretty much of a muchness. It's the same price, give or take. It wasn't
Yeah.
like excessive, but on fast food, your guys' pricing is through the roof.
Yeah, well, and Five Guys is very, very expensive,
Yeah.
and
Well, no, but
also,
even McDonald's, it's like $10 or $11 for a burger. Here, you can get a full meal for what's it, $5? You yeah, yeah, $5 for a full Big Mac with a drink and fries.
yeah, you got to remember though, you're in Chicago.
No,
Chicago
fair
is
enough.
a
Well,
very expensive liberal city.
Amsterdam was the same. Amsterdam was the same because we
Yeah,
came to Amsterdam, and I wanted to go get a Big Mac because I've had a Big Mac in every country I've ever been to except Amsterdam. I wasn't paying €11 for a Big Mac.
yeah,
There was no way in hell that was happening. So I was like, screw that. I will just go hungry. I'm not, yeah. Like when I used to travel for work, I had a business card. So I didn't care. I'm hungry, I'll buy food. But yeah, when I'm going on my
hmm
own dime, there was no ways that was happening.
yeah. I remember getting into IMTS in Chicago with Noel, and we went out to eat. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
everything is really expensive here.
I paid
Like, we were
$10 for a
shocked.
slice of pizza at INTS. We missed lunch at the Toolpath booth the one day, EJ and I.
Yeah,
And we're like, no, we'll just grab lunch. I grabbed a slice of pizza. It was $10.60. A Coke was $5 for a Coke. I'm like, no,
yeah. A
thank
bottle of
you.
water was $5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll go and get a free bottle
wild.
of water from one of the booths. Because if you're
Oh
paying for
yeah.
food at IMTS, you're fucking around. Like you just go
Oh,
to a
thank
booth and
God for
get
Tool
free stuff.
Pass.
Oh yeah, dude,
Yeah,
Toolpath did amazing things.
oh my gosh, I ate so many hot dogs and drank so much
Yeah,
soda over there. It was
yeah,
great. I
hundred
didn't have to
percent.
pay for it.
Yeah, that was the
Uh,
best. But yeah,
that was like the oasis. It was like a desert oasis. Like
yeah.
you just like slip in there and like, oh, it was
No,
great.
what they did there was build community engagement like crazy. That was a really smart move on their part.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, no, that was a
Great
really, really
marketing
smart.
move.
Yeah, really smart marketing
Yeah.
move. Hopefully, they do
Yeah, I
something
didn't even know
similar.
they existed.
Well, exactly. Like I knew they existed because I spoke to Ben from Black Fox, and Justin Gray, the CTO, follows me on Instagram. That's the only reason I knew
hmm
Toolpath existed, and I think it had been
Okay.
mentioned on Taps and Patience once or twice. That's the
Yeah.
only reason I knew about them. And speaking of them, have you seen Pre-Tool?
Pre-tool.
Yes.
No.
You need to go check out Pre-Tool. So you upload or you copy in your Fusion library, and it generates you presets for running aluminium, running steel, running stainless steel.
Oh, feeds and speeds.
Feeds and speeds, like really good starting feeds and speeds.
Huh. I
Yeah,
have my own
and
recipes pretty well established,
so
but I'd
do
like to
I.
check it out.
Well, so did I. I just redid all my tool libraries. I ran it through there because I don't run a lot of steel, so my recipes weren't
hmm
dialed. My alley recipes were okay. So what I did is I left my default recipes there, and I generated additional presets for roughing and floor finishing and wall finishing.
So
And
you
yeah,
have like a separate library for those feeds and speeds
well,
from
no, you can do
Pre-tool.
presets in Fusion. So you select your tool, and then
hmm
so in your library, if you click on the tool at the bottom, it shows your presets, and then you can say,
Yeah.
okay, cool, I need the preset for roughing. Roughing. Click the roughing one. I need the finishing preset.
Oh yeah.
It's really, really
Yeah.
well.
I need
Yeah,
to start using that. I never use that. I'll just if I'm doing something special, I'll hand type
yeah,
in the
that's
RPM
what.
and
Yeah.
the feed rate when I need to. But I think yeah, a preset like that would be even faster. I should
So
start using those.
run your tool library through. What I did is I ran my old library through, and then I just made a duplicate called
hmm
LK Pre-Tool. And then I actually went and separated all my tools out the other day into my LK aluminium, LK mild steel, and LK stainless. All my milling tools, all my drills, that when I want to program something, I just grab the tool from the library and go. And it's a good starting
Yeah,
point.
that's a great idea. I have a
Because
new
I
machine
do
that has 10,000 RPM, so I need to already create a new library for the new machine because it's higher RPM.
what's your new machine?
My new machine that has 10,000 RPM, the
And
old
the old
one was
one?
8,000.
Okay. So yeah, you want to use that in
Yeah.
aluminium, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
run everything
definitely.
at
Yeah.
12. Everything is 12,000 RPM.
You bastard. I'm jealous.
Yep. I kind of wish I had bought a Silex 3 so I had 20,000. But yeah, or X5, sorry, X5. That's hopefully in the cards for this year, this coming year. We're going to see if I can manage to get a new lathe and a new mill.
Yeah, those are really cool little machines. Didn't
I,
Confounded get one, or he
yeah,
has an X7?
no, he's got an X5. He's just got it running.
Oh
He
yeah,
actually posted this
yeah,
morning that he's got it finally running production. I wanted basically
so
to
cool.
put my production work on, like my mag bases, some of the pallet stuff, all the stuff that repeats. I want to put on there that I can use the LK for job shop work and still be able to run production while I'm doing job shop work. But yeah,
Really?
that requires me to have a bit more production work lined up.
So
Like
you're
as
gonna
it
have
is,
your little X5 as like a production designated
yeah,
machine, and then you do your job shoppy onesie twosie stuff on
on the
the
LK
LK. Yeah,
because the 300 mil envelope is a bit small. It's like a 1 foot envelope on that on the X5, but all my production stuff is generally very small. So if I set that, my thought is to set that machine up as just a production machine, and then the LK can be used for bigger parts and prototyping and whatnot. But
yeah. A
when
lot
that
of your stuff
happens,
you do is pretty small. I've noticed.
yeah, then what will happen is the slow yo will then be disappeared. It'll get sold. Yeah,
No,
it's sad, but it'll get sold. It's literally being
I'm
kept to
like
cross drill pins. That's the only reason I have it. There's cross
I've
drilling
watched
pins.
that thing just slit saw so many different little parts over the
Yep.
years on your stories. I'm like nostalgic. I'm like
Yeah.
nostalgic about that machine now.
Well, as it is, the machine's staying because I'd rather have it as a spindle than as money in my bank account. It's more valuable as a spindle.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if I put down another proper spindle, then that thing's getting heated because it literally just gets
Yeeted.
used. It's getting used for cross drilling pins. That's it. It stands the
Yeah.
rest of the time. So it
Yeah,
doesn't really.
my bench mill is getting used a lot less just for like engraving nowadays.
Yeah.
But
No, it's sad, but they still have a purpose.
they
Like
do.
that's what
They do.
that's what got me to this
I'm
point.
yeah, I noticed with that one too, you were using like aluminum extrusions for like the frame around
Yeah.
the
That
enclosure.
that are built out of extrusions that are liberated from my job and built that like 2 weeks after I left the job. No,
Five finger discount.
we had 100 kilos, if not more, of offcuts from a job. So
Yeah.
I was just making some of it disappear every now and again. That place
Mm-hmm.
they had so much shit laying around they didn't know what they had. Like that
For
whole
sure.
machine, that the whole Sister Slowio, I bought one plate for. The rest was from the scrap bin at work.
Wow.
I bought the plate for the table. Everything else was scrap parts or offcut tube or yeah stuff I found in the scrap bin.
Now the Slowio, that's the machine that you made the how-to series on YouTube that I
Yes,
watched a long time ago.
yes, the one that inspired a bunch of people. Apparently, it inspired Ben
Oh,
from
that's
Black
very
Fox to
cool.
build his machine. Yeah, like we're
Yeah,
actually chatting about it. He was inspired to build a machine because of that video series.
very cool. Yeah, I remember that big shop that you were
Yeah,
using the mill at to.
that was my
What were you
previous job.
machining the casting for it or the base
The weldments,
tube?
all
The
sorts. Yeah,
weldments.
yeah. So basically, what I did is I
Yeah.
welded it together, sent it for shot blast and base coat, painted it, and then I machined all the linear guideways and whatnot. So it was painted, and then I machined where the linear guides sit, and that way also the shot peening stress relieves the steel. So it's actually
Oh.
really stable for being a weldment.
So it's not swelling and shrinking with
Yeah,
temperature and
it's not twisting
there's no
because
stress
that's the thing.
stress in the
Yeah,
material. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't, because you're welding it, you're adding heat and stress. If you
Yeah.
don't stress relieve it, it just warps. So when I built it, I was designing machines for a living. Like that's what I did. I was a
Hmm.
machine designer at TrueGauge, and I built this thing with all the knowledge that I had gained over like 5 years there on machine building and building stable stuff. I mean, there we had cylindrical grinders, all sorts of stuff. So my initial spindle was manufactured there. I paid
Oh
the
my gosh.
I paid the fitter
You
and
made
turner.
your own spindle? Am I hearing this correctly?
Yeah, I designed it. I mean,
Oh
I was
man.
designing and manufacturing spindles anyway. So I
That's
designed and manufactured
serious,
a
serious stuff.
yeah, I made a TTS style, like a Tormach tooling system style spindle, which in retrospect was a
Yeah.
mistake, but it
That's
got
what
me
I
there
use
for
on
a few
mine.
years.
Like an
Yeah,
R8.
yeah, it's okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, BT30 is way better. Um, so that I paid the
Yeah.
fitter and turner to turn my parts after hours. I paid him his overtime rate, and he made all my
Hmm.
parts for me. I sent them off to heat treat, and when they heat treated it, the spindle core bowed. Not enough that it was a problem. We could still grind it clean, but it was always off balance. And then I want to
You get
say
vibration when it's running max RPM.
it only does 6,000 RPM, so not really. It's just it
Okay.
wasn't perfect. I then had
Yeah.
it. I then worked with that system for a few years. I think till 2021, and then I redesigned the spindle nose clamp and the spindle core, and I changed it to BT30, and then I had that manufactured. That cost me like what did it cost? Yeah, about $300 to have that spindle core manufactured. I should have just spent the extra $150 and bought a new spindle, but I had the spindle core manufactured, and they couldn't grind the taper correctly. So I had this whole thing manufactured, heat treated, assembled it, and my tool's running out like 5 or 6 thou. So I'm like, no,
Oh.
take it back to them. I'm like, guys, here's the whole spindle assembled. Grind it in its bearings, please. No, you can't do that. I'm like, listen here, put it in a bloody V block, drive it with a fucking hose, and grind this thing. No, no, they stripped it, they reground it, still fucked. So I ended up buying a pneumatic die grinder, putting it in my vise, and programmed a taper move on the CNC, and ground the taper while spinning the spindle in the machine.
Oh, I'm putting my face
And
in my
then
hands right now. That's
yeah,
ridiculous.
I got it that it would, if you put the tool holder in facing the same way, it would repeat pretty well. Um, if I was trying to do high accuracy work, I would then check run out and tap it in and whatnot. But it would repeat within about, I'd say, about a thou on concentricity from tool
Hmm.
change to tool change. So I just designed parts that can get away with that much deviation, and then it was never a problem.
Yeah, as long as you're not doing plus or minus tenths
Yeah, and
aerospace
I
work, I
used to
think you'll
do
be all right.
No, I used to do plus minus tenths, but it used to take me forever. Like the case gauges I was making, it
Hmm.
was 3 hours per part because I could only rough it slowly. I could only drill it. I could only drill it at 4 inches a minute. If I went any faster, the frame of the machine would open up from the pressure, and the drill would go skew.
Wow.
Yeah, so I figured out where the limit on that was, and then to bore it, I would put the boring head in, set it undersize, bore it, mark it, adjust, adjust, adjust. Okay, it's now cutting the right size. Let it run the 100 holes. Um, Now on the LK, I push those drills through at like I think it's about. Hang on, time for the calculator. My brain's not switched on yet. 2000 divided by. Oh no, it's 16. Hang on. 1600 divided by 25.4 at about 62 inches a minute with a carbide drill. That whole job used to take me 3 hours per part. It's now 36 minutes and the part's done. They're better
Wow.
quality. And yeah, my neighbor was here. We're chatting, and I'm like, no, we're now doing a 3 hour job in 30 minutes. Like, how the hell did you manage that? I'm like, yeah, I spent $40,000 on a milling machine. That's how I did it.
Turns out throwing money at it does help sometimes.
Sometimes, yes. I was listening to the Pearson and Andrew podcast, Lean Built, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see what it's actually. Yeah, I was listening to their podcast, and Andrew was making fun of Sanders for going down the rabbit hole of setting up a Raspberry Pi to show stats in the workshop. He's like, we just pay for that service. paying for that service costs less than an afternoon of one of our guys messing around with the Raspberry Pi. And I'm like,
Yep.
fair enough. Like, there is a point where bootstrapping is not the correct option. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a fine line between throwing money at a problem and actually trying to solve it the old school way.
Yeah, I think you struggle with that a little bit, Jamie.
I do. I definitely do. Like, I spent 3 days trying to
You,
set up a Raspberry Pi so that I could see my Trello board in my workshop. Because if I have to walk into my office and open a Trello board, I'm not using it. If I have to take my phone out
yeah,
and look at the Trello board, I'm not using it. So now I have a dedicated, it ended up just being a computer running Linux, and it opens the Trello webpage. And that is how I manage what I'm doing in the workshop. Because anything that's more effort than me just walking over and moving the mouse, it's too much effort. I'm not going to do it. Like,
yeah, you're a
I
problem
know how
solver.
I am. Well, yeah, I know how I operate. Like, if the barrier to getting started is too high, I won't get started.
Yeah, I suffer with that. I still do the work and I do the things I need to do, but I'm sure there's a lot of steps in my processes
Yeah,
that I'm doing more than necessary, and I'm not like taking the time to make the process better. So from then on, it'll make it easier. I just go through the
that's it.
motions
Yeah,
and get it over with
I've
anyways. I'm guilty of that, and I should
I've had a
really take
few.
the time to analyze that and be like, okay, right now I should take the time to make this process better so I can save time in the future. But I'm like,
That's it. Yeah.
yeah, I'll just,
The most
yeah,
frustrating thing with that is when you eventually do make that change, you're going to swear at yourself because you should have done it a year ago. Because
sooner.
now it's just easier.
Yes.
That's with me. That's what happens. I'll procrastinate doing something for months, and then I'll do it. I'm like, shit, I should have done this 3 months ago. Because
Oh
now and
yeah.
forever, it's going to be easy. Like, yeah, my tool libraries were a perfect example of that.
Ooh, I'm guilty.
Yeah, like, I spent half an hour the other day and I sorted out all my tool libraries. In my mind, it was this giant task, and in reality, it really wasn't.
It really wasn't. Man, I have it in my head as like a big deal. Like, man, I got to
Yeah,
click on every tool and I need to change the RPM for this and that. This is gonna take all day. Even
actually,
though,
in that case, I would suggest you export and you run it through pre-tool, because you can set your RPM limits in pre-tool. So you can say I've got a 10,000 RPM spindle, and it'll regenerate all your tool libraries with feeds and speeds appropriate for your RPM.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, seriously, have a look at pre-tool.
I
It's
gotta try
really
this out.
yeah, it's really powerful. But anyway, I think we should
Yeah.
end the podcast there because we're at an hour and a half, and then
Okay.
yeah, next week we'll cover some interesting topics. So this was just us covering our backstories to give the listeners a bit of insight into what we do and where we're from. And then I think next week we'll see what topic we're going to dive into.
Yeah. Sounds
And yeah, I
good.
think from next week we're going to be a bit more structured. We've got some talking points that we're going to try and follow. But yeah, everyone that's listened, thank you very much for listening. And yeah, hopefully you'll hear from us in the next week or so.
Yeah. Enjoy making
Sweet.
chips.
Yeah, let's go make some noise.